Well, look at that. Bears and Broncos look like they never left us. Absolutely amazing. We know it's been a while, guys. Welcome back to the I'm on a Mission podcast. We've been off for a couple weeks. Corsan and I definitely needed a break with the Thanksgiving um, coming up, and then really trying to process covering this week to week NFL content. So back at it with you again. Corsan, how are you doing, and how are those Broncos looking?
I said it a week ago. I'll say it again. Broncos country, let's ride.
There you go. If you didn't enjoy that from the last episode, I don't know what to tell you. It's padded in. They're coming back. Their defense looks really, really good. All the credit in the world to Vance Joseph. We both beat him up so badly after that Dolphins loss, and there's nothing to go but up from that. And they are taking full advantage. Sean Payton has it. He has the wheels. He has the controls. He has everything. Like he's driving the bus, and everybody's following suit. Just nothing but respect for him. Um, we're doing something a little bit different. Like over the course of the season, we would cover game by games. We started a Give Me Five segment just to highlight specific players that maybe weren't on your radar, but guys we thought you should pay attention to. At this point in the season, it's kind of wrapping up to playoff pitchers, and then a lot of teams that aren't in it anymore are looking towards the draft. I know just from a fantasy lens, going back to that. Um, Personally, I'm in most of my leagues doing well. Like two of them I'm doing really well. I know my home league, I'm fighting to make the playoffs, and that dynasty I'm doing absolutely amazing. Even though I didn't want to try this season, I somehow 11-1. But I think there's only a couple leagues where I'm not there's no way I can make the playoff picture. How about you, Core?
Yeah, I have a couple leagues that I'm doing pretty good in the dynasty one. I forgot. I thought I did, but I guess I didn't sub out Aaron Jones for just any other running back, and so that ended up costing me my week.
Man, you lost by 3 or 4, I think, right?
Yeah, I was 3 or 4. If Josh Dobbs would have just scored 10 points, I think I would have won. But it was a rough outing for him against the Chicago Bears, unfortunately. But I guess I'll just have a better draft pick for my rookie draft for this upcoming season.
Say that
But
3 times fast. Wait, how come Josh Dobson scored 10 points?
you know, Bears had some good interception plays. They're pretty solid on defense this week.
Pretty solid. I'll take that. Awesome. So yeah, we'll jump right into it. We're not gonna. We might mention specific games watching through it. By the way, Bills and Eagles, absolute thriller. Credit to both teams. It's kind of crazy looking at the Bills schedule and where they stand in the playoff picture. We'll get into all that, but just want to throw that out there. If you want to watch QB play and how you should call offensive games, watch both those teams and this game. It was an absolute clinic. I enjoyed watching. That was probably my favorite game I watched this weekend. And there were a lot of games. I watched 9 of them this past week. The first one we have on the docket is coincidentally why QB development is super important. I think when I was first coming up with this topic that I wanted to talk about to you guys, um, I was thinking of differences between Jordan Love and Bryce Young, and how despite both seasons being their first starting for the majority of the games in the season, why they look vastly different. Obviously, Bryce Young is not in the most ideal situation. Frank Reich just got fired. Josh McCown just got fired, I believe, too, and so did Deuce Staley. Those offensive assistants for the Carolina Panthers as well. Um, and in order to get Bryce Young, the Panthers had traded their first round pick along with DJ Moore, meaning their first round pick with 2024, amongst other first round picks as well. Um, and basically, that's costing Bryce Young this season, even though they made a lot of free agency moves. There was, it's not good enough. It's flat out not good enough. They haven't built around him enough. Whereas with Jordan Love, he started out slow.
Mhm.
He started off really well against the Bears. Of course, that had to happen. But the past 3 weeks, he's been a top 10 QB, arguably. If you watch him play, and especially against the Lions, he looked really, really good. Granted, it looks like the Packers' young receiver core is starting to get confidence winning in man-to-man coverage situations. But Jordan Love is not like he's played much more confident. He's taken a lot of the command, like in the huddle. Like if you just read his body language, it seems like it's things are a lot more comfortable for him now. Does he have
Mhm.
lapses in processing coverage post snap still? Yes. I'm not saying it's the next coming of Aaron Rodgers. I hope not. But I think it's important to highlight the differences between how both of those QBs are playing because it's so important to point out that having a surrounding ecosystem, coach, and offensive structure is vitally important. Um, Corey, I caught you at the wrong time. Um,
Uh,
but once it gets settled, what did you think about like the differences you've seen from Jordan Love and Bryce Young and other QBs if you want?
yeah. um. Yeah. With Bryce Young, I think what and people end up like knocking him about is just the fact that like how well CJ Stroud has played throughout the season. But like statistically looking at quarterback, I guess rookie quarterback numbers specifically, I'd say Bryce Young is about standard for like a lot of young quarterbacks that enter the league. We've definitely been spoiled with guys that kind of come out swinging pretty hard. Like, I mean, Joe Burrow's kind of one that quickly pops up to mind. Where, yeah, sure, he got hurt his rookie year, but like those couple of games he played his rookie year, he looked like an absolute superstar. um, yeah, I mean, like Patrick Mahomes is another guy. I mean, he's had out his rookie year, obviously because they had Alex Smith there at the time, but um, literally within 1 year, um, he was playing like a superstar. Also, granted, also Chiefs had already a pretty loaded roster, like for him and whatnot. And so I think that's a big part with Bryce Young as well for an average first round early pick quarterback that goes to a team that isn't good like at all. Um, uh, I think he's playing as good as you really could expect from it. Um, and then kind of going back to your Jordan Love thing, yeah, I really like I guess that receiver room that they built for him as well. It's really young, a lot of like inexperience, but you have guy like Jaden Reed. He's playing really really good. I put him at my top five rookie receivers of this current season right now, um, which is disappointing considering the Panthers also drafted a rookie wide receiver pretty early in the draft, and he hasn't really seemed to made the strides that maybe you expect from him. Granted, I know Carolina's a mess right now, obviously, like you said, with the coaching and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, yeah, when you have a top five receiver rookie or whatever, plus second year guys that are developing pretty nicely, draft a solid tight end. You have kind of established offensive line. You have established just players all over the field. Basically, it kind of helps out with making sure everything doesn't rest on your shoulders. Where I'm sure Bryce Young is the situation that he's in. I think a lot of pressures on him to like be the change for the team when there's probably going to be a lot of turnover with the roster in the next couple seasons.
Yeah, no, that's well stated. And I think specifically on their like offensive line, Green Bay, when their offensive line is healthy, might have one of the best lines in the NFL. Like it's right up there with Detroit, and like even Cleveland when they're all healthy. And I'm I'm sitting here looking. Obviously, I was a huge fan of Jaden Reed. I mocked him to the Bears. I was really bummed when the Packers picked him up. But like guys like that and Christian Watson even that can win man-to-man coverage and like turn that athletic ability into sound route running and surrounding Jordan Love with that is like really, really helpful. I'm still hopeful about Jonathan Mingo on the Panthers. I think he could eventually become a number one receiver. It's just going to take time with him. Similar story to Quentin Johnson. Um, but like the Panthers don't have that type of guy on their team where like it's like a dynamic playmaker. Like if you get him on the ball in space, or like he can win on his own. Like he could go like 50 yards to distance. Packers have two of those guys, like from the receiving
Mhm.
position, but they're not the focal point. It's AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones in that running game, and they're trying to get these receivers and tight ends on the same page with Jordan Love. That's why you saw some of the struggles he did. And granted, Jordan Love had a lot of inconsistencies where he would sail a lot of throws that he shouldn't,
Mhm.
or like he'll just flat out miss, or like when he faces more complex defenses, the post snap processing wasn't there. And that last part is kind of where every quarterback struggles with. I feel like when they first come in the league, and um, like if you look at C.J. Stroud, I'm not trying to compare C.J. Stroud to Bryce Young. Like he has a really good, innovative play caller that makes things really easy for him, and a lot of good young receivers um, that are being used in the right spots. Like Noah Brown is like really good at deep crossers, and the offensive play caller knows that, but he complements that with other routes. You can't just key in on Noah Brown running a deep crosser. You have to worry about Tank Dell, like just like taking the top off your
Mhm.
defense, or like Nico Collins, like in the middle of the field. Like because Nico can win anywhere in the middle of the field, and Dalton Schultz is a safety blanket. So like Panthers don't have that where it's like they give Bryce Young easy answers to like build around that. And Jordan Love struggled with the easy answers he was given. So QB development is not like I'm glad you mentioned it's not like a Herbert or Mahomes or like even Lamar Jackson. Like it's immediate. That's not normal. That's a rarity. And I feel like it's a combination of things that need to happen to get a CJ Stroud like
Mhm.
season. You need the coaching.
Mhm.
The Texans also have a really good offensive line on top of that, and their running game is not there like as much as you would expect on a good offense. And but they have like talented receivers and whatnot. And Carolina needs to focus like on what does Bryce Young do well. Do we have the guys to help what Bryce Young does well on the roster right now? Do we have to find a way to go and get them and go from there? Yeah, sorry. I know I threw out a lot, but
Mhm.
um like I think another case that's like super important is like first 2 years of Tua, like when he was playing under Brian Flores. Everybody called him a bust, and he was pretty injury prone. Like after watching him in Flores' system, and so Mike McDaniel, he's like a perfect case of what I'm talking about. He understands what Tua does well. Tua's always been a really, really good decision maker, and like throwing with anticipation.
Mhm.
And he found the guys and the system to do that. Now, is he throwing
Mhm.
like 30-yard bombs all the time? No, but like the routes and like the processing and like what Tua's elite at compared to other quarterbacks in the league, he's still able to showcase that because he has a coach that understands that and two wide
Mhm.
receiver ones on that team. So
Mhm.
it's a combination of things that help a QB become really, really good.
Yeah, and like one last thing for me too is like, uh, I think a lot of people forget this, but like I don't know, maybe like 10-ish years ago and beyond that, a lot of times first round quarterbacks wouldn't necessarily even be like starting their first couple
Right.
games. Letting quarterbacks kind of sit back, really adjust to the NFL was a big part of quarterback development. Whereas again, like we've seen a lot of guys from the college to NFL adapt pretty quickly, and so it's really I think pushed out the idea that like every quarterback really needs to be NFL ready day one, and there are some like that, but again, it's I feel like we've been really saturated with that with all these young quarterbacks we've had entering the league the last couple of seasons. But you also have to remember guys like Josh Allen took a couple of years before he really found his groove, and obviously he's having a slightly rougher season this year, but still, I mean, he's the quarterback that's been like the de facto like next guy up like after like Patrick Mahomes, and then you got guys like Trevor Lawrence, who he had a like he had a slow start to his career
Yeah,
as
one of the
well.
worst like situations his rookie year.
hmm And like even now he's playing good, but he's not playing like even to like maybe like the full ceiling that we maybe expect from him. And so it's like Bryce Young, yeah, he has his struggles, but it's still his rookie season. He went to a bad team, and so yeah, I think that over the next couple seasons, I don't think next season they'll be good either, just with lack of draft capital. I mean, they'll have like the number 33 overall pick, which I'd hope that they can draft in all honesty, either like the best remaining offensive lineman or like an elite playmaker is like what I'd hope from their second round pick that they got still. But
They have to hit on all their late round picks
hmm
this year. Like, I mean, Detroit showed us that can happen.
Mhm.
but like that's really difficult to do. Like they've given themselves a small margin of error just to hit on young talent
Mhm.
this upcoming season. So it'll take a
Yeah.
while. I agree.
Mhm.
I think the one thing you brought up with Josh Allen sparked another interesting thought with me.
Mhm.
If we look at Anthony Richardson, like
Mhm.
because similar quarterbacks that both have strengths in scrambling and they can make plays off of that. Like the reason why Anthony Richardson was having a phenomenal season, and or like I should say, a phenomenal stretch before he got hurt,
Mhm.
was the Colts understood what kind of QB they wanted when they hired Shane Steichen. They were in line
Mhm.
lockstep right when they hired
Mhm.
Shane Steichen. They're like, okay, we know he built around Jalen Hurts like in offensive scheme and play calling, and he knows how to utilize scrambling QBs well.
Mhm.
Like Jalen Hurts had a phenomenal jump, and the Colts had one of the best running backs in the league. They've had one of the best offensive lines when healthy. They've they don't have the wide receiver type talent yet. That was going to take time to develop, but they have promising receivers like Pierce, Pittman, Downs. Like that trio, that's a really good trio
Mhm.
in 2 or 3 years to grow with Richardson.
Mhm.
Like the the sky's the limit on this team when Richardson's on the
Mhm.
field. And they're already the seventh seed in the playoffs this season,
Mhm.
despite Richardson not playing for the rest of the year. Um, it's again another great situation where even when Richardson was on the field, Steichen knew how to call plays around him to
Mhm.
maximize his strengths, and Bryce Young didn't have that. Jordan
Mhm.
Love, on the other hand, like another thing that hindered his QB development was himself. Like there's some like technical gaps. So like until a player addresses his technical gaps or like the
Mhm.
situation is like really good around him where it can
Mhm.
allow him to grow and develop, you won't see jumps like a Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts
Mhm.
until both of those things are in place. All right, I think we hammered it home
Yeah.
this topic well enough, but I think it's a good one. It's a really important
Mhm.
one. I think it's something we're going to continue discussing as the draft comes up. Um, Next, we'll jump into something fun. Um, Kept this pretty general. We can go anywhere we want with this, but what are some of your surprises this season?
um, say a big surprise for me is probably the Patriots this season. Um, and I was looking back at some of our record predictions, right? Like that we had at the start of the season. And here, I'll pull up what we both had the Patriots doing this season. You had them going 7-10 this year, and I had them going 6-11. So like, by no means did we think that they'd be good teams this year, but like, Mac Jones has been pretty unbelievably awful. And like the fact, they brought in what's his face again? O'Brien, right?
Yeah, Bill O'Brien. Yep.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien, because he was like their offensive guy that like he was a decent coordinator, just not a good head coach GM type, personality or whatever. And so everyone's like, oh well, now they got rid of Patricia. Uh, we'll have a real offensive coordinator, and this offense is going to get cooking. But obviously that hasn't been the case this season. He's Bailey Zappi's been played in a couple of games, which is obviously not good for the outlook on Mac Jones.
Yeah, I think for me, it's clearly the Los Angeles Chargers. I've had them winning the AFC West over the Kansas City Chiefs. I think I had them at like 12-5 or 13 and
Hmm.
4, like some wild record like
Yeah.
that. And clearly that's not panned out. I think they're four and
Hmm.
six or 4-7 as of
Hmm.
this point in the season. And like I guess how they've lost is not surprising if you've been paying attention to the Chargers the past 15 years. They always have this charging moment. And but like I just look at the talent on this team and before like Bosa and Mike Williams got hurt, like I would put them up against anybody. I still would as far as like talent. Like
Hmm.
it's just the regression has been like baffling. And I don't know like how you fix the situation other than like fire
Hmm.
the head coach and try and find a guy like Ben Johnson or like
Hmm.
Mike McDonald. where like you can really like shore up the defense and the offense with the innovative play calling
Hmm.
because the quarterback is there, the receiver is there, the running back is there, like the defensive line is there, like on paper, and they hit on another edge rusher in Pelotu. Um,
Hmm.
like I just I'm like still baffled like that they're completely out of the
Hmm.
playoff picture right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy because I thought the Chargers would be at least decent, but like they started out really kind of close to the Chiefs, but then like they really just fizzled out really, really quickly, and it's just kind of crazy to see how that all just came to happen, basically. Um, but yeah, another thing for me as well, kind of within this surprises of the season was how good the first four picks by the Detroit Lions are playing right now. Because I remember I was like, I thought like they got the guys they wanted. Sure, you could argue like the draft position, but everybody made fun of the Lions, saying they were like losers of the draft because they could have gotten Gibbs and Campbell and Laporta all later in the draft, and like Brian Branch is their only real like value pick they got amongst their first four. But like I was like, I think they're good picks, but then like they've been phenomenal picks. That I don't think anybody saw coming, especially with Gibbs' slow start. But like the last couple weeks, he's been on absolute fire. Jack Campbell, like everybody who's like, you can get Jack Campbell so much later in the draft. He's been like one of the focal points in like stopping the run for this Lions defense this season,
He is
which
so good against the run, dude.
because that was like a huge weakness of theirs last season. And I'm like, Jack Campbell, if that's the consensus number one linebacker, like off ball linebacker that they have in the draft, get him when you like, get him early if you need to. And that's panned out great for them. Sam Laporta, everybody was saying, oh, get Michael Meyer, get whoever. Uh, meanwhile, yeah, I mean Kincaid, he went in the first round, so you can't really put much there. But outside of that, Laporta's literally been
He's
everything you really want
outperforming
from him.
Kincaid. He's had the best tight end season out of anybody in this class.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Kincaid is also splitting for a while, and so that's why I mentioned
Right.
like as of recent, Kincaid's playing phenomenal, but literally from week one, Laporte has been playing phenomenal, and then obviously Brian Branch, the famous tipped interception against the Chiefs week one, and he hasn't made as much noise throughout the rest of the season, but he's still been out there making plays for the team, and I think that was just that was a big surprise in the fact that all four of the first four picks by the Lions have panned out for them, at least this season so far.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised they're having a good season because like
Hmm.
everyone was picking this team as a sleeper, like going into this season. I feel
Hmm.
like to like have a rebounding year. So like the fact that they're playing this well is not surprising me. What is
Hmm.
surprising me is how nuanced the rookies are playing. Like Laporta was the first one where it's like, okay, he knows how to beat man coverage and he's winning consistently with technique. Like we saw this coming out of the draft,
Hmm.
and he was like one of our higher rated tight ends. I think I had him 2 or 3.
Hmm.
I obviously thought Kincaid was going to be really good. Like they're all really like the
Hmm.
tight end class like from 2023 was absolutely insane, and like Bowers might be better than all of them. That's a separate note.
Hmm.
Um, like I think the one thing with Brian Branch, just watching him playing against the Bears was like he does a good job disguising his intentions. Like, especially like when
Hmm.
stopping the run. Like normally, like cornerbacks and safeties are notorious, like in the NFL, for not willing to be tackling, like willing tacklers against the run. But like Brian Branch, like he'll look like he's like guarding the slot receiver in man-to-man coverage. Like eyes like only focus on the receiver, not even like cheating and stop trying to stop the run. And then before you know it, he's like already setting the edge and like stopping the run or like getting in the backfield. And you're just like, wait, what? How did he time that up so well? And he's made a lot of great plays in space. Obviously, we talk about his ball hawking skills. Like that was a really
Hmm.
good get for them. And then Jameer Gibbs. I remember I think it was Austin Eckler, like on one of the Yahoo Fantasy podcasts, like talking about, oh, why Gibbs is not having a good season up to this point. And it was mostly because like Montgomery's outplaying him because Montgomery knows how to set up his blocks before like finding gaps and
Mhm.
exploding. But Gibbs has solved that problem. He's developed that ability to solve it, and
Mhm.
he's going to have a great stretch down the line because
Mhm.
he knows how to get the 4 or 5 yards that are there, then rather than trying to get the 15 plus yard gains, like if you can outrun everybody. Because in
Mhm.
college you could probably do that, but in
Mhm.
the NFL it's completely different. A lot of guys are
Mhm.
better edge setters, um, and you need to play the down and distance game against the really good teams.
Mhm. Yeah. How do you feel about the top five passing yard leaders in the NFL right now?
I know we talked about this.
Uh huh.
I don't. You got to remind me of the list because I haven't been keeping track of it.
So number one is Sam Howell.
Okay.
Number two is C.J. Stroud.
Okay.
Number three, Josh Allen. Number four, Tua Tagovailoa, and number five, Jared Goff.
Um, 3 and 4 are not surprising to me. I kind of
Hmm.
expected them to be on the list. Um, you said Dak was two.
C.J. Stroud was two.
CJ Stroud. Yes, that's right.
Dak
So
is number six.
okay, 1 and 2 did not surprise me at all. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, sorry, 1 and 2 surprised me the most. I did not expect. I did not expect like Sam Howell and CJ Stroud to be leading the NFL in passing yardage.
Mhm.
Like at the start of the season, after 4 games, like, but if you look at their situations, it's like ripe for passing. Like this is what I'm talking about with like QB development. Like
Mhm.
they both have really good play callers that are setting up with success, and they have guys that can throw the ball that can win in man-to-man coverage when they're in the bind.
Mhm.
And I think that's I'm not surprised. Like,
Mhm.
granted, do their defensive have some lapses sometimes that force them to pass more than often?
Mhm.
Yeah, but like I thought, like all five QBs would be from the AFC, like and teams you would think like Mahomes,
Mhm.
like Burrow, like Allen, like Herbert, like
Mhm.
Tua, like I would not be I would not be surprised if they were on the list, and like even
Mhm.
Jalen Hurts from Philly. Um, and I know I'm currently losing the bet to you right now with the Jared Goff passing yardage, but like the Lions have again a great situation with a good play caller to
Mhm.
maximize the talent there, and
Mhm.
I think it's just a testament to we really don't know like whether it's fantasy
Mhm.
or like explosive offenses who's going to pan out until we
Mhm.
see like the draft and like the coaching staff there because coaching plays a
Mhm.
large role into like how guys get open or how guys have answers to complex defenses.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was not expecting CJ Stroud, Sam Howell, and Jared Goff to be in the top five going into
Yeah.
the season. That was a great one. Great
Mhm.
selection there.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that either.
Um, Another thing I wouldn't have guessed is after the Falcons selecting Bijan Robinson and all the hype going into obviously fantasy, that drives this a lot. But if you watch Bijan's college tape, you thought he was the next coming of Saquon Barkley, but his production is not matching up to that.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, that's an interesting case because like when he gets the ball in his hands, he's like incredibly efficient. Literally the first couple of weeks of the season, I think we all remember just like on all the NFL social medias that they'd be like highlighting the crazy like one-handed catches or crazy extended runs that Bijan would have. But yeah, turns out the other B Robinson is getting all the touches in the NFL, and he's the one that's kind of putting the league on notice for some reason. But yeah, it was like yeah, like it's tricky because like a lot of the playmakers in that offense in general are not getting necessarily the touches you'd expect them to have this season, which is I think what the most mind-boggling thing is just in general from that Falcons team.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch him even going to the London game against the
Hmm.
Jaguars, like he's just making insane one hand catches or like he had a touchdown where he caught the ball and was like behind his back. and
Mhm.
he pinned it like with one hand and like got in the end zone. And I was just like, this guy has all the talent in the world to be like a top three back in the league for for his career, basically.
Mhm.
And I think it's just a more of a reflection of like the offensive structure. Like they're not even featuring like Pitts and like London as much as they should. So that just goes to show you. Ooh, everything okay there?
Yeah, everything. I just knocked over like a little candle lid.
Dang, how dare you do that?
Yeah.
But no, but in any case, like their last three offensive draft picks that had the highest potential to to be the stalwart on this team on offense is not like being used that way. And I think
Mhm.
it's a coaching thing
Mhm.
because you can't tell me that Jonnu Smith should be getting more touches or like be featured more in the ways that he like. Yes, that it's good they're featuring him in like the schemed plays that they are. But it's very scheme dependent offense. Like they're trying to scheme guys open and not trusting guys to do that. And maybe that's a function of Ritter being QB, like because like when Heineke was QB, you saw Kyle Pitts being featured a lot more, like
Mhm.
this season. But at the same time, like look at the good teams that like the Bengals, like they got Jamar Chase going by moving him all over the field. Do that with Pitts. Do that with Drake
Mhm.
London. Do that with like we've heard all this talk about Bijan Robinson being used all over the formations and stuff. Like just simple nuance, and you don't have to call some like elaborate play for these guys. Just trust them. Like put Bijan on the linebacker and like have him run like a slant route and see
Mhm.
what happens. Like maybe the scheme you could do is like put like Pitts on a post or like um
Mhm.
and Drake London on like a dig route, like that's going in the opposite direction of Bijan taking a slant, and that way you're creating space for Bijan to be utilized. And if they try
Mhm.
to take Bijan away, you have two options, like like in different levels of the field that Ritter
Mhm.
can go to. Simple things like that, like would get these guys like maybe twice the production they're having right now.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's not like a Bijan's not talented enough. It's more of like they're not being used the right way. So this is a
Mhm.
bad example on how talented players can be miscast into roles that they're not optimal, and
Mhm.
it's going to lead to a drop in production from what you project.
Mhm. Yeah. And what's crazy too is just the fact that, the coach is the same guy uh who was in Tennessee when Derrick Henry had his 2,000-yard rushing season. And like everybody was expecting, oh, this guy, he's a run heavy guy, so which is understandable, your scheme's your scheme. He's like a run heavy guy, so he's gonna feed his workhorse guy, and then he's like, I don't know, he still gives Tyler Algier. I mean, he's played okay, but like he's why are you feeding him when you have a full on workhorse running back? And I feel like my only, I guess, potential excuse for this is the Falcons knowing maybe that this was a test season for Ritter, seeing that maybe it's a lost season for him, and like not wearing Bijan Robinson out like in a year that's basically lost when you want his legs to be fresher for a longer period when you are maybe competitive. But I still think it's kind of weird that you have games where you can win and you could be competitive. Like they're literally in the wild card, or not wild card.
No,
They are
no,
the
not
division
even
leader.
that.
They're
They're
the
the
number
fourth
four
seed.
seed.
Like
Yeah, so like
they're
you're
winning the
technically in
division.
a.
Like that's what's so like mind-boggling to me. Like you're winning the division, and you're telling me Ritter is your only plan at QB to maximize the talent you have around you this
Hmm.
season? Like that can't be it. Like I know you invested in Taylor Heineke, but that's not good enough. Like Josh Dobbs was literally sitting on the trade deadline. Like
Hmm.
the Jets and the Falcons are probably the two most disappointing teams that could have easily upgraded their QB like mid-season and chose not to out of
Hmm.
stuff. Like that just goes to show you like the stubbornness of these organizations. Like and the Jets are in a similar spot where like I don't think Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall are being I don't think they hit their ceilings yet because they're not in the offensive structure to do that. Like so like it's not a Bijan problem. It's like this is happening to a lot of talented players. Like on bad offenses. And that's essentially what it is. Like
Mhm.
the Atlanta Falcons are bad offense, not because of the players, but because of the system.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think um like along that same line quickly, like with Bijan, like I would if if somebody is like lost hope in him, like dynasty, trade for him now. Like this is the time to trade for him. Like Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, like those are the guys you want to trade for. And if by chance the Falcons come to their senses and pick an offensive minded head coach, dare I
Mhm.
say a Ben Johnson or like a Brian Johnson, any of the Johnsons, like that's instantly gonna make their offense a lot better. Or
Mhm.
Bieniemy. Like just look at what Bieniemy is doing with like Sam Howell, Brian Robinson. You
Mhm.
mentioned it already. Like he would know what to do with this team. Like
Mhm.
it's crazy. It's like that got me worked up. I'm sorry. What I am not worked up anymore about is how the Bears defense looked last night, how they looked the week prior to that before choking the lead, and like how the
Mhm.
Broncos are looking lately. What do you think? And how like are you surprised the defenses are looking like really good?
Yeah, I'm. Yeah, it's a big surprise the turnaround from both of these defenses. Um, I know Justin Simmons is a huge part of the Broncos defense playing the way it has been for the past couple of weeks. Because like I know on the field like a lot of players like rely on him to make sure they're in like the right spots, making sure that when the offense audibles, like players are moving into the right way so that there aren't those gaps in coverages, and that we kind of saw when he was out, the Broncos struggled a decent bit with that. But also, I mean, with the Broncos defense, I do think that the Dolphins game was a really big wake up call for them in terms of obviously nothing is working with what we're doing right now. Things have to change. And so, like, I don't forgive Vance Joseph for what happens earlier in the season, and the fact that you literally your defense gave up 70 points. I don't think you should expect anyone to forgive you for that. but but I do respect him in the fact that I get he's figured something out. He's changed something up with his defense that has allowed for them to be in position to create turnovers, create important stops, and I think uh, I think, I mean, removing I mean, getting rid of their pass rushers, old pass rushers was pretty big with Granny Gregory and
They look
Frank
completely
Clark.
different since Gregory's moved on.
Yeah, because I mean, Baron Browning, Nick Bonito have both looked good, and then Jonathan Cooper's also looked pretty good as a rotational guy. And Browning has made a lot of like really smart plays, and he's missed an early part of the season as well. And so I think he's been a really good guy to have back in like as a pass rusher, basically every down lineman type player, which obviously has benefited the Broncos in the pass rush department, getting to the quarterback and pressuring them. And then with the Bears as well, I do think that them getting all their secondary members healthy was a huge part of this, because I know earlier in the season they were missing quite a lot of those key secondary members, and
We were
I was
basically missing
pretty
our entire secondary.
hmm yeah, but because like I remember looking at this Bears defense and like at the start of the off season, or I guess before the start of the season, I was thinking that the even with the additions on the offense, I did think that the Bears defense was still a stronger unit than the offense was. They brought in two linebackers that I really really liked. I do think that their pass rush was really really weak, but obviously they fixed that. I mean, and it was really weak until they fixed it by bringing a guy like Montez Sweat in. But they are getting decent value from their rookie defensive tackles that I knew were big question marks, but they're getting their play time, which I think is really good for them. And really, the issue was their secondary is really easy to pick apart just because that's all they had to do was target the secondary, and they were able to get you know big plays off of that. But now that they got all their guys healthy, I know a couple picks from Josh Dobbs was from tipped passes from the receiver, but picks are picks nonetheless. They got the guys in the right places. They got the smart guys that know how to be in spots to make those key turnovers, and so I think that's a huge part of that Bears defense change too.
I mean, and to piggyback off of it, like the Vikings game shouldn't have even been a game. Like really, like even the Lions, like like that's a 7 point swing if Jalen Johnson takes the pick six all the way in the Lions game, and then he did it again in the Vikings game. He dropped another
Hmm.
pick six back to back weeks. Like, oh my, like he made up for it with like catching like really like he he had a really good play in like zone coverage where
Hmm.
they got underneath the receiver and timed it perfectly for a pick. But like the gimme pick sixes, like those, that's a 2 win like streak you're starting. Like if you set that up, and
Hmm.
I just look at I just look at what the Bears have going, and the one thing that makes Matt Eberflus's team goes is like a really good three
Hmm.
technique and a really good edge rusher. Because then he can pull all the stunts and rush with four in a complex way that makes this defense hard to solve. And then
Hmm.
that's when the linebackers TJ Edwards um and Tremaine Edmonds, that's when they could really thrive. And you saw like Edwards all over the field. When they're running and not like trying to pass rush,
Hmm.
like every single time or like stick in a stationary zone, they're really, really good. And you saw more man to man calls, you saw more like stunts. Like you don't see that. And I think it's just the like personnel is getting healthy at the right time. Sweat like has been an added boost to their pass rush.
Hmm.
That's like freed up other guys to win one on ones. Dexter's been really, really good against the run. Um,
Hmm.
and like Jalen Johnson's playing out of his mind this season. This is like one easily the best like game he's had in his career. Kyler Gordon's like playing slightly better. Like he still has some lapses. Tyreek Stevenson had some lapses, like being a rookie thrust out in the role so early. But even the Broncos defense, I look at them and I'm like, they're well prepared. Like I think Jonathan Cooper could be the best edge rusher on this team. Like come next season. Like as as much as like Baron Browning's had a really good like he had a really good season last year too, but like the Broncos have a really good foundation there, and I think it's a more of a product of like coaching staffs develop their game plans to their personnel, like when the season comes, like when it's midseason, based on what's happened. They don't just stay the same and like roll out the same defenses, and I think this is the case where like people are dogging the coaching staffs when they're actually like really, really good at adjustments. And look how brilliant these units are playing right now.
Hmm.
All right. I can only stick on for a couple more minutes, so I'll let you handle this Dak Prescott segment after I get started on this. All I have to say here is I think we were completely wrong on the Cowboys, like offensive situation going
Hmm.
into it. Like they look better without Kellen Moore as their OC, and I did not think I was saying this when this first started. Um, I look at Dak and he told us before the season started, I'm not going to throw more than 10 picks. Obviously, things can change right now,
Hmm.
but I think he has 25 touchdowns on the year and 6 interceptions
Hmm.
past week 12. So I think he's having a strong stretch where like he might be close to 10, but he won't eclipse 10. I don't think the way he's playing. And
Hmm.
they're featuring CD Lamb a lot more. Like they finally realized like Jake Ferguson's like a good tight end. Like I thought it'd be
Hmm.
Schumacher, but like Jake Ferguson like
Hmm.
was still like a really good tight end in his own right.
Hmm.
And they also realized that they should use Rico Dotto a lot more
Hmm.
instead of like treating Pollard like he's Austin Eckler or Christian McCaffrey,
Hmm.
and like giving him more like less plays but more chances to be explosive and
Hmm.
get his legs caught up under him. And
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks is finally looking like a
Hmm.
steal for them, and he's a great wide receiver number two.
Hmm.
He's like the prototypical wide receiver two. That really should be like a wide receiver 1.5, but
Hmm.
like he just gives that offense like a really needed boost,
Hmm.
and like no team can key in on CD Lamb anymore. So
Hmm.
like Dak Prescott's taking the checkdowns a lot more. He's
Hmm.
playing a lot smarter. Mike McCarthy's calling a lot of great plays. He's featuring go routes a lot more, but like he's understanding like the go route can't be the offense. It's like complementary, and
Yeah.
I think it's opening it up for everybody.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think the next couple of weeks for the Cowboys will be a really big test for them because they have two teams in the next couple of games that are really fighting to make sure they have a spot in this wild card. with the Seahawks and the Bills, as two teams up in their upcoming lineup. But they also have the Eagles, they have the Dolphins, and they have the Lions um, as other teams that they're going to be facing in this next like 5 week stretch or something. And so, like it'll be big to see if the Cowboys can carry the momentum over the past couple weeks onto basically the rest of the season. Because it is going to be a tough stretch, but yeah, I was impressed with how Dak Prescott's been playing. I think he's impressed pretty much everyone. I think with how well he's done as he should be playing with the team that he has and the competition he's been facing. But uh, yeah, I mean that's kind of what I have on Dak Prescott.
Okay. Um, Sorry to leave the podcast early, but thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Corsan, if you just want to preview the playoff race and then um, call the episode as is, that's perfectly fine. But with that, peace out, guys. I will see you next week. Good luck, Corsan. I believe in
Mhm.
you.
Yeah, so yeah, for the playoff race, obviously we're at like what week 12, week 13 right now, and so things are really starting to ramp up with this. And so kind of just starting off with the AFC picture right now, I'm using the uh, just the NFL.com standings, just kind of how they've listed off. It's just kind of the standard stuff here. But I think as we expected, or at least Chiefs and Jaguars are pretty front heavy runners right now, and I think they're guaranteed. Obviously, Ravens are guaranteed. I think obviously as you look through this list on the left right here, uh, the Bengals with the injuries and whatnot have struggled pretty heavily, but obviously the exciting part here is the wild card section, which I think starts out here with this Buffalo Bills, Denver Broncos, Houston Texans, which are the currently on the bubble teams, and then the teams that all the question marks around, I think, are the Steelers, Browns, and Colts. And now, like the Steelers and Browns are 7-4 right now, but um, it is still only just one, I guess, win ahead of a lot of these teams that I had listed down here below, with all of them having 6 wins, and the Texans and the Broncos having 5 losses. And so on this upcoming week, Texans and the Broncos do end up facing each other, and so this will be a really huge game for them to just kind of determine, I guess, who might make it into the playoff race. And then I know Colts, I think, are have an easier game this upcoming week, so I'm expecting them probably to at least win this upcoming week, keep their position here. But the big question marks, I think, are for the Steelers and Browns, because if either one of these two teams loses, that becomes it puts them in a pretty dangerous spot in terms of will they be able to hold this spot, especially with the Browns missing starting quarterback, they're missing the starting running back. I think they're missing one of their key offensive linemen. Uh, I know it was just for the game, but I know Amari Cooper got hurt during the game last week, and so if injuries start to or keep on going for the Browns, it's gonna not be super great for them. I know Steelers, they had a phenomenal game this, or at least offense production wise, they did really well without Matt Canada, which I'm sure Steelers fans are pretty happy about here. But yeah, I think that at least from the AFC side of things, those are kind of the preview. Obviously, Broncos country, let's ride. Hopefully, they went out. I think they have a pretty winnable schedule, especially with the Chargers not playing as hot as of recent. Uh, and with their poorer play that they've had, I would say that you know, at first I thought maybe Broncos hopefully would just split with the Chargers, but now I'm thinking maybe they could win both the games. I think Texans and the Lions are probably the two hardest games upcoming for the Denver Broncos. But outside of that, if they could win out, I could see them, getting a 6th or 7th seed spot in that in the AFC picture, which obviously makes me pretty happy. And then on the NFC side, you can see a little bit more on the screen here, but obviously, I feel like at least 1, 2, 3 seeds are pretty expected for what we had. I think when we did our beginning of the year predictions, I think we all had these 3 teams at least leading their division, at least I think I did at least have leading the division. I'm pretty sure Josh did too. Um, with maybe like the Cowboys being a competitive team, that we thought the Seahawks might be a competitive team here, and then I know I thought the Vikings would be a team, at least like at least those three teams would be guys competing for the wild card spot, which uh is the case right here as we see. um, and like I mentioned earlier too, the Cowboys have a tough-ish schedule upcoming. I know the Seahawks have a tough upcoming schedule, so I know this next couple of weeks is going to be really huge for them. I think Cowboys are a bit more safe in terms of the the most almost definitely make this wild card spot. Um, just looking, at the teams trying to compete for the wild or the next spot where you have a 5-6 Packers, you have 5-6 Rams, 5-6 Saints, a 4-7 Buccaneers, and like if the Saints or the Buccaneers do have a bit of a streak, this turns into more of a Atlanta Falcons team dipping out rather than uh one of these teams getting into that wild card spot. The only yeah, and so I think we might see a potential, Packers or Rams swapping with the Seahawks or the Vikings, which is funny because, Vikings, Packers, same division, Rams, Seahawks are the same division. But I just know that, Seahawks have a tough schedule coming up. Uh, and then Vikings really needed to have this must win game against the Bears, which, they lost without letting up a single touchdown, which is surprising. But yeah, so I think if you're a Vikings fan, you're really hoping that Justin Jefferson can come back really next week because I think from this point on, their schedule also happens to get a bit more difficult. So, um, yeah, it's a tricky game, but if you go down the list, at least on the NFC side, I feel like after the Buccaneers, even the Buccaneers are a really big if. It just happens that their division sucks. But you look at teams like the Giants, Bears, Commanders, Cardinals, and Panthers. um, they have basically no shot. Carolina Panthers can't even match their win total from last season, which it's pretty depressing. I would not want to be a Carolina Panther. And then on the AFC side here, I feel like Patriots are out. Jets are out. I would say Titans are out. Chargers really would, and then like past this point, I think teams really do need to win out with the Chargers, Raiders. I think the Bengals are out just again with the quarterback injury. I think Titans. I mean, they would need an incredible stretch from Derrick Henry to really string together a bunch of wins. But I think that while they have Derrick Henry and DeAndre Hopkins, I think there's too much inexperience on the offensive side of the ball to really string together a lot of good wins. While they can, I do think they can get maybe 2 to 3 more wins. Again, I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but um, at least that is how I am kind of thinking about how I guess this playoffs is sorting out right now. So I guess recapping on the AFC side of things, I think Steelers, Browns, Colts are the teams that are probably stressing out about losing their spot, while the Texans, Broncos, and Bills are the teams that are really, really trying to fight their way back into the playoffs. And then on the NFC side, I would say this Falcons team. It's a team that, if you're a Falcons fan, you're panicking. Cowboys, most likely chilling. But then Seahawks and Vikings fans, I think, are teams that are concerned about, their upcoming schedule. And then I think, yeah, Packers, Rams are the closest teams to knock out Seahawks, Vikings, followed up by Saints and the Buccaneers would be the team to take out the Falcons. But um, that's kind of most what I had to say. Probably repeated a bunch of things, but that's all we have for today. Remember to like our podcast. Follow us on Instagram at amon.a.mission. It's cool stuff. Try to post updates and whatnot. But yeah, peace out.